We
Yeah.
are Harrowings, and this is to Philip Chalmers. And I was just telling
Hello.
that I recently intersected, sort of, at the Hamilton Live for Thanksgiving day before benefit for the DC Central Kitchen with John Cadlesic, who Philip knows from way back when John was with Hairball Willie, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Philip's
And
got a big podcast, by the way, so we'll be talking about that. Go ahead.
and speaking of John, it as it happens this weekend, he was just here in Auburn for an event called Very Jerry Christmas, and it's a fundraiser toy drive kind of thing. 2 days at the Oddfellows Hall. Unfortunately, I couldn't get there this year, but I heard it was a great time. He had Melvin Seals and JGB with him.
Right.
So, yeah,
And this
a lot
time,
of fun.
furthermore, which includes members of Last Fair Deal of Virginia Beach that come.
Right. Yeah.
I had Denise Parent on
Mhm.
Harrowings recently as well, who played drums with Furthermore the year before.
Mhm.
Small world, it's just I'm trying to network it all together all the time. And
Yeah.
this little node out here on the network,
Yeah.
picking up the signal, trying to amplify it.
That's right.
There's a lot of noise out there in the world. So let's talk about the
Yeah.
you're amplifying.
Well, you kind of in your summary of it, you picked up on it's a home frequency in a fractured era. It's a place where the signal slows down. Stories arrive, and instead of just performing, and people have a chance to kind of breathe a moment, to take in, instead of the outrage loop and the constant urgency and the ding ding ding. And if you're getting tired of that, you're the right audience for this. It's this isn't louder, this is just a bit slower and a lot more truthful, I think.
Yeah, the podcast does give you a microphone to transmit the word to us, and you're also using an awful lot of media to do it as
Mhm.
well. You were telling me a little bit about your family's musical contributions to the podcast. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. Well, in the episode, the first episode here, it's both Julian, our son, and Maggie, our daughter, are featured in there. Maggie she's got an amazing voice. She just loves to sing. She doesn't want to be a famous singer. She just loves to do it. So we kind of capture it and put it in the show. She's written some little songs that in the next episode are going to be featured. She has 3 or 4 or 5 songs that are going to be featured in the next episode, which is about connections and things like this. And like you were just saying, being a thread in keeping everything connected. That's what the next episode is actually about, which drops at January 21st.
January
But
21st. Okay.
yeah,
And you're in the process of recording it now, or is it already in the can?
it's half in the bag, man. It's
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And it's called The Long Wave Home. Do you want to explain the title a little bit for us?
Sure. A long wave is a radio wave. It travels very long and slow. They can go for miles and miles. They can be repeated over and over. They ripple in 360 degrees around us. So that's a long wave. And the idea of home is just that's kind of like where everything comes back to us as humans. We find ourselves at home where, the home is where the heart is. It's what we defend. It's where we dream. It's where we love, where we grieve. It's home, you know, just a safe place. And that's kind of the idea of, um, we're a sanctuary in that noise, the outrage loop and all that, so it's the long wave home. One of the things that's different about our program too is it's although we're on a podcast platform,
Mhm.
That just happens to kind of be the current medium. It used to be radio.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it still is. This show is going out to, it'll be syndicated, I guess, but not really syndication. It's just passed around to a lot of community radio stations, community-based radio, which is kind of the equivalent of cable access TV back in the day.
Yeah.
It's, you know, nonprofit, or very little profit, and it's, so, like, KVMR here in, Nevada City will be airing it soon, next year. There's another station up in Quincy, there's one down in Davis. I'm working on one in Sac, but, and a couple actually in the Midwest too, which we're hoping to get on board. But, it's the kind of thing that they have, they're gonna be broadcasting it, like, once a week on a Sunday evening at 11 o'clock, kind of thing is what KVMR is gonna be doing.
That's
Yeah.
great. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to hear that because a friend of mine has a morning show out in
Mhm.
KQ radio in the
Mhm.
Rogue Valley of Oregon,
Mhm.
re down into Northern California, apparently, and
Mhm.
just fairly small, area, but, of course, on Radio Garden,
Mhm.
any of these are accessible, and,
Mhm.
you'd be able to get it over the internet, I'm sure, from any of these stations that Radio Garden picks up and puts
Mhm.
out internet waves. So, I'm fascinated by that whole idea. Did we talk about KSKQ before, or did we mention that the last time we were together? I don't
You
remember.
know yeah,
It's
I don't remember either. I mean, it's,
Mm,
so much goes on, and it's like, maybe?
right, right. Well, our connections, tend to have some intersection, and I think that was really interesting when I first got on with you. We had first talked about the books you've written from
Mm,
Schlepp, which was what, 2009? Was that right? Or is it
right.
2000?
No, 2009, and it was a challenge that, I was going through this, psychiatric putting myself together kinda thing,
Right.
and the doctor I was working with encouraged me to write out my, issues and work on framing things using story to, so then he through the one of the therapists got me interested in this thing called the National Write a Novel Month contest. And it was a thing that happened. It recently ended. I think they're still trying to do it, but the official RIMO is no more. But the idea was to, from November 1st to the 30th, writing a novel, a novella, 50,000 words or more story.
Mhm.
And so I took up the challenge and I kind of poured myself every day. I would sit at my laptop and just write away, and
Right.
had and you kind of get people to, it was a fundraiser for a literacy program. So I had people like sponsoring me and I was telling them, and I could share little clips of things, and it got me back to me, you know. I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, I'm a, you know,
Yeah.
because I was so lost after the breakdown.
Yeah, that breakdown,
So
and it opens up something new for you when that breakdown happens is
mhm,
can happen for people. I think oftentimes, and I remember, both of us have had that experience of being misdiagnosed and, treated as though we were, broken for all time, and then it
mhm,
turned out to be so.
mhm,
Uh, that's a really wonderful story to have. I know that a lot of people are broken and stay that way at
mhm,
times. It isn't necessarily the story for everyone, and
mhm,
our medical community, I think, can profit from our example. I'm not a doctor, and I don't wanna start pretending to be one in the course of talking about these issues, but I think they're extremely important, and the ability to tell stories, to be able to relate to one another, it becomes increasingly important as I think we're going through this process of technology starting to tell us stories. I don't know
mhm,
if you've encountered the artificial intelligence front, but
mhm,
you've got a lot of people who are thinking, "Oh, well, I've got this great idea, and then I'll have this AI write it for me
mhm,
and then put it out there as though it's fresh, creative work," where
mhm,
it's really not.
mhm,
Uh, I don't know how I feel about that entirely. Do you have, some insights into that? I'm wandering into an area that probably I wasn't anticipating going into right now, but what do you think?
Yeah, there's a reason why slop was selected as the word of the year, you know?
Was it?
It's
Okay, I missed that.
yeah, by, Merriam-Webster or whatever is
Was it?
the word of the year, slop. I've always been one to embrace technologies. You
Mhm.
know, part of my origin story, for example, in this episode of Long Wave Home was I got this Fairlight CMI computer, and I was able to I performed, but I didn't really perform Rhapsody in Blue or the Nutcracker Suite by programming it into the computer by
Interesting.
using a live pen. I almost played I had a keyboard. I mean, I've got a keyboard. I can play keys,
I see it.
so I played like just a riff of Rhapsody in Blue and then was able to just kind of take that and extrapolate an 80-piece orchestra playing it, you know, by programming. And well,
Fascinating.
is that right or wrong? You know? Well, is it? I don't know, but I did it. And
Right.
United Airlines liked it enough to make it their marketing thing for 30 years. They did, and
Right.
was I putting musicians out of work? Hell no. I had all kinds of musicians wanting to use my thing to create their thing, they wanted that kind of sound. And so AI to me is as a writer, well, it's the best damn spell checker I've ever had kind of feeling, And, it's sometimes could be useful as a sounding board perhaps to, because it's a large language model. So it's pulling all this, extrapolating all this stuff from other things that people have thought, said, done. And yeah, sometimes it's good to get a dash of that in because I don't have time to go back and read all these different things that I read back 40 years ago when I was studying,
Or find them, right.
Right. And in my fact, I remember this thing that somebody said. What was that? What book was it that was in? And I can turn to whatever, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and they can find it. It's like Google on steroids is kind of how I think about AI. Um, but this whole thing with like them using it to write poetry or write prose or that's such a there's no way you can tell it. Anybody who can write or read really can start spotting it. And so I think, well, it was kind of that way with digital music when it started. There were people that were programming all the music, and we had all that dancing kind of sound. But it faded, we got back to our roots. We got back to what was real in some sort of way, I mean, yeah, it was changed, but that's life, isn't it?
Well, it can be both and as well. I don't know,
Yeah, right.
into, LP Giobbi and her mashups of, Jerry Garcia's first solo album. Um,
Mhm,
he did it as sort of a what the heck she call it anyway? Dead house,
mhm,
but beats, you know? And
right,
it's exciting performance, actually. I found out about it through Gary Lambert, who,
mhm,
hit me off to the fact you'd be playing an after show after the Dead& Company, stop in Philly during their last tour before they did their Sphere stuff. And I don't know how I feel about the Sphere either, but I haven't gone there and experienced it myself. My We were talking a little bit about my friend Brian Hassett, who's, written this book on Jack Kerouac and Hitchhiker's Guide to Jack Kerouac, and he went out there and he said, "You gotta go." You know,
mhm.
my wife won't let me go to Vegas. She knows what would happen. So I'm gonna stay here in Washington, DC. And,
Mhm,
when you were talking about too the, outrage cycle, yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that.
sure.
It certainly has happened to me at different points, but I have to calm down my nervous system. And I
Mhm.
see that is a lot of what the long wave home is about as well, is that sort of bringing yourself into a human level of interaction with your audience as well.
Yeah.
This is on Apple Podcast right now, folks, if you wanna find it, The Long Wave
Mhm,
Home. And
mhm.
talk to me more about that, sort of what it means to the nervous system
Well,
and all the systems for that matter. We're whole
it's
people after all. We're not just a nervous system.
yeah, that's a really good question. It slows the signal down is kind of what I'm trying to do. Um, Slowing it down so people can breathe a moment, can think and contemplate, can give a little bit more attention than 5 to 8 seconds, which is, no, serious, that is the statistic.
Is it mm,
Something like that, but it's very short, and it's like, so this is kind of a place where you can kind of give attention, and attention is a form of it's a form of love, it's a form of self-care, it's a form of respect in the civic sense, you know? It connects to a lot of different things, and suddenly, maybe listening a little bit more is a form of resistance to the echo chamber that we're thrown into, to the minutia of 24 news cycles. I mean, I got along pretty good when we used to just get the news a couple times a day and in
half hour?
context,
Yeah.
in context and truthfully and without, their pundits' opinions and, outrage things. I mean, let's get back to a point, not as just in ourselves where we can breathe and think, and that becomes a form of resistance. That's beyond algorithms. You can't be manipulated if you're slowing down to listen to it because it's not what it's trained to do. It's like, serve up the next video. Here's the next news piece. You were just shopping for this. Here's a story about it. It's weird shit. It's like, s- eh,
Yeah, well, I could see it in radio in the old days too, in some ways, and the media in general and the way in which we try to manipulate each other. And to give someone your attention, though, and take in slowly what they're saying,
mhm,
digest, let it let it sit there for a second or 2.
mhm,
It's kind of a rare gift to feel heard by another voice,
mhm,
you know? And I wrote a little essay on Substack not long back about helping others be heard.
mhm. That's one of my favorite things about you, Hal, is
Thank you.
you do a beautiful job of amplifying other people I never would have thought about listening to or reading about, and I mean, thank
Thank
you.
Yeah, thank you. It's, like, so generous of you to say that and so generous of anyone to listen to anything I have to say.
Mhm,
That is and be my guest, to so I give you the opportunity to take the microphone for a while. I don't know. I had my friend Odette on earlier today. We've never spoken,
mhm,
person to person, so to speak.
mhm,
And we messaged each other. I've watched her work, and I've been amazed, and enraptured and sometimes by her the polish and the production surrounding some of the work she was doing when she was on the pop scene, so to speak. I
mhm,
missed '90s apparently when she was working with, what did she say, Polydor or something? What was that? Hologram? I forget.
mhm,
One of those record labels she was with in the '90s. But now she's doing, a lot of sound healing sessions, and she does Reiki and astrology, and she mixes these 3 things together and just did one in Turin, Italy recently. She's based in Milan.
okay.
And we can have relationships with people at distance. I got a phone call later on with one of my former guests, Julia, who was one of my earliest guests, and she's in the Canary Islands, for God's
Mhm,
sakes. And we just talked on the over the, whatever this is called, FaceTime.
mhm,
Oh, we didn't go on live on Substack this time. We had never just talked one-on-one.
mhm.
Internet failed at one point on her end and called me, but
Mm,
we
mhm.
wrapped. But that is, important, I think, to have these conversations one at a time with different people with different perspectives, to be able to get those perspectives and amplify them out over the airways. We seem to have come from similar backgrounds. I forget exactly, where did you start out? Where were you born? Was it on the East Coast or was it out there somewhere?
I was born at 5:17 in the morning on a cold, snowy December 7th, 1961 in Chicago, Illinois.
You go. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Were your folks in the city itself, or were you a suburb?
Yeah, they lived in at the corner of, Southport and School, right in the Wrigleyville area, above Marge and Eddie's Tavern,
That's great.
and, the family myth was I was born in the back bathroom upstairs because of the blizzard. The ambulance couldn't get there on time,
Wow.
but that later proved to be just a myth. Um,
They're nice.
yeah, I was, born in a nearby hospital. It was a blizzard, and what they were worried about me getting there. So there's some truth mixed in there. But they lived there for the first couple of years that I was born. My dad was finishing his degree at DePaul, and mom was working for Allied Radio. Um, and my auntie Marge, who owned the bar, was my babysitter sometimes when I was a little guy. I used to run across the bar. There's all kinds of stories about you
Yeah.
know, making people laugh and doing little silly what a 2-year-old
That
does.
in here by any chance?
No, no,
No, or
those
did
are actual things that I actually remembered, things that I loved that book. That's my favorite book I've written. That's actually, it looks like you have the, original, print of it. There's
great.
there's a 5th anniversary edition that I guess maybe it hasn't been released. Yeah, that's the first print.
This has actually got copyright 2019 on it.
Right.
Alright.
Um, yeah, there's one that's copyright 2024 that came out. Well, it's supposed to have come out. I guess it was this December it comes out. So it should be there now. I'm surprised.
Well, I
Um,
have sort of
anyways,
talked,
the
so
the
gotta
only difference between the two is that there's a story that's been swapped out. There's an extra story in the um the new version of it. But anyways, that those stories are fun. Those are about being a kid growing up in the '70s in Arlington Heights, Illinois, which
mm,
was where my mom had moved when they got divorced. So it's kind of like that, between about 10 years old and 17-year-old, that part of life just before I left to
it looks
become
like
a
you're on a
man.
rocket-powered Schwinn here.
Well, I was a big Evil Knievel fan.
I see. Did
And
you put
in
rockets
19 it was 1974, he was gonna jump across the Snake River Canyon. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay.
I was 11,
S
but I remember.
okay, so I was a little bit older, and I decided I was gonna jump across the moat that was actually like a rain collection pond, retention pond that was in front of the apartment complex, but they made it like this moat thing, with stone bridges going over it, and I was gonna jump my bicycle across the moat, and we're talking about probably 150, 200 feet. There was no flipping way I was gonna do that. But that wasn't the point. The point was I was gonna try. I got all these people involved. I put on a little show. My brother and I fixed up my bicycle. We took High C cans. Remember High C, the drink?
For sure.
Right. So we cut off the bottoms and tops, and we mounted it to the back of my Schwinn pea picker bicycle that we painted white. It was like this
That
green, but we painted it white. Right. There's the bike. You can see the little speaker, the little
high
rockets on
speed can.
there.
Yeah.
Right. And I dressed up in like a white outfit, and we had this big ramp, and I went down the ramp, and we inside the little cans we had um there were model rocket engines at
Right.
D4s, the
Sure, sure.
bigger ones, and I had 3 in each one, and
Wow.
then this little matrix of wires, and my brother would sit there, and so as I'm getting ready to go, he hits the thing and they get ignited. I start running down the ramp, and all of a sudden, as I'm getting by, one of the rockets shoots out of the can, like right next to my leg, and it freaks me out. And I go off the ramp sideways, landed right in the mud next to it with like the bike pin, and the rockets going off into the water. It was,
Yeah, that's pretty much how Evil did it too.
yeah, exactly. As it turned out, but it was a lot of fun. It was a legendary, tall tale of my short childhood.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you've written on the back here. We're all electromagnetic energies walking around in carbon and water based monkey shaped meat suits on a small rocket that rotates on an axis at 1,000 miles an hour as we hurl, spin, and orbit every 365 days with a bunch of other rocks around an unstable mass of burning gas. So, in reality, there's absolutely nothing to fear because our chances of survival is a miracle at best. And I think it's invigorating to think that we are still in the game of Beat the Reaper.
Mhm.
You know that reference?
Beat the Reaper?
Yeah.
Sounds
Fireside
familiar.
Theater. It's a quiz, right?
Yeah.
Fireside Theater.
There you go. Yeah.
Like, well, Beat the Reaper. You've got the plague. Anyway, um,
Yeah.
you had to guess what you had of different things that might actually cause you not to win at Beat the Reaper, who always wins the game at the end anyway. So what are we afraid of? I
Yeah.
think us are hemmed in by fear, have been, over our
Mhm.
years. We're taught that at an early age. And some of us take it on and some of us don't. One of the things I was doing recently was I was at the book event over at Lincoln Theater for Patti Smith's new piece of memoir called Bread of Angels. Have you run
Mhm.
across that at all?
I've been reading about it. I haven't read
You've
it.
heard about it? Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, she seemed to have been fairly fearless from a young age, and
Mhm.
I started reading it last night in earnest as my wife was watching more mistletoe mysteries on television. Those things are
Yeah.
interestingly written, you know?
Mhm.
There's a market for everything these days. There's so much
Yeah.
that you can just pull down and feed your mind with to numb it out.
Mhm.
I guess that's really what we're talking about at some level is staying awake and aware at a human pace. And,
Mhm.
I really like that about what you're on about in Long Way Home, to bring it back around. Um, what else do you want us to know about it? Just off the top.
Audio only, and so there's no visuals, there's not talking heads, there's not AI generated whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
it's old it's put in your headphones and go for a walk and listen. Or stop and, enjoy the sunset somewhere and actually, it's better to just enjoy the sunset and then afterwards listen to the show. Be there, be in the moment of the sunset. It's so much better than anything I could create, you know?
I love going out and seeing the sun rising in the morning when my wife
Me
is
too.
going out to work. I wouldn't do it, except that she is going out to work and needs me to drive her. So,
Mm,
she hasn't been able to drive since suffering a stroke at the age of 42 that paralyzed
mm,
the left side of her body. And we talked a lot about those kind of things too that happen in your life. You were mentioning your mother earlier, and I remember that you took
mhm,
your mother out to live with you in
mhm,
the years of her life, right?
mhm. Yeah, the last few years of her life, she came to live with my wife and I and our family out here in California. She had retired to Arkansas, and then her husband, who she had met when she was in Arkansas,
Right.
had passed away, and then after he passed away, she started, the slippery slope of old age, falling and forgetting and crashing the car and.
My mother did the same thing after my father.
Yeah,
I think we may have talked about that.
yeah, but yeah, but that's just kind of one thing. You were talking about your wife.
Oh, yeah.
That's a challenge. That is one of those things that you have to make a choice of either does this define me or does it destroy me or does it
Keep going.
just change me, teach me something else? This is something not everybody gets this experience. It's something for me. Like,
Yeah,
uh
I've often thought she should write a book about it herself, but, she seems to be more interested in reading and listening. She listens to a lot of books on tape. Uh,
Right,
Series largely, rom-coms, not really rom-coms, romantic novels and things, and it
right.
keeps her occupied, with that, but it's interesting to me that we're in a three-legged race through life, I say,
Mhm.
to that, and that she did say, "Nobody told me I could lay on the couch and eat bonbons for the rest of my life." So, she went back to work and
Yeah,
continued her career as a human resources director, and she
yeah.
did pretty well, I think. She gets pretty good, accolades from she's conscientious, and I guess it has a lot to do too with the culture in which one is raised. Hers was, Latrobe, Pennsylvania, coal
Mhm,
miners, you know,
mhm,
kept going no matter what happened to them. Her
mhm.
father was legally blind, but was a forklift driver at Rolling Rock Brewery.
Wow.
Story that wants to be written, but I never knew
Yeah,
him personally. Uh,
yeah.
he passed away before she came into my life or I came into hers, as the case may
Mhm,
be. But yeah, yeah, that it does transform you. Life does no matter what you do. I've been
mhm,
very lucky. I've got all my limbs together. I am sometimes a bit accident prone. I was sharing with Odette my first stigmata over here,
mhm,
where I ran my hand through a fence, a slow decorative fence. It wasn't even sharpened. It was just this
mhm,
sticking up out of this thing that goes around little
mhm,
flat boxes around here. And I
mhm,
tripped and fell on my as I was carrying my first coffee of the pandemic,
mm.
Starbucks coffee I had gotten, and I spilled it. That was what I was really disappointed in.
Oh,
Noticing that there was a rod sticking through my hand was small
uh.
potatoes compared to losing the coffee. I pulled it up and off, and this passerby made a tourniquet out of a sock and
Yeah,
ambulance, and they stitched me up.
yeah,
It's amazing what the human body can take, and it's also amazing what doctors will tell you. And I want to get onto
mm,
that subject maybe a little bit, and your
mhm,
journey
mhm,
with your doctors, because it sounds like you've had some pretty good ones, as well as some that may have left something to be desired. And they're all human, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and they do the best they can, I think, with what they have in terms of their talents and such. But in my case, my doctors, when I had this stitched up, said, "You were really lucky.
Hey, decide.
Did everything important." And I was like, "That's a weird kind of luck."
Yeah,
Story, you know.
yeah.
And you had apparently some was it autoimmune condition as well that you had? My wife has something similar. She's got autoimmune hepatitis that's arrest.
Uh, yeah, I have lupus, and
Uh,
I don't have just systemic lupus, which is what 80% of people who have lupus have. I have every kind of lupus that there is. I have cutaneous lupus, which affects my skin. That's why I'm often wearing a hat. I have it detected in my kidneys, nephrotic, my central nervous system involvement. So I get this inflammation in my inside my spine that'll affect different things in my body, and it's an autoimmune illness. Um, and the thing that's kind of curious about it is I've been to four different rheumatologists, and the first one though, he told me I got it all, and, started throwing out different kinds of medications at me, and, telling me that, "Yeah, well, you probably have 5, 6, 7 years of good time left, and then, things deteriorate quickly. Lupus starts making your body, your autonomic system not work correctly." And they did these sleep studies because my brain was not telling my respiratory system to continue breathing. It's a type of apnea, complex apnea that it, and so I didn't like the because I had gone through previous to that a whole round of different doctors telling me about psychiatric problems that I had, giving me all kinds of medication. You're bipolar. They labeled me, and it was a misdiagnosis. So when I got the autoimmune diagnosis, I remember that, and I was like, "Oh hell no! I'm going to find a different doctor. I'm going to find why you know." It's mostly women get it. I don't have any family history. I got it at 55 years old, which it usually presents when you're in your 20s. It was like all these things. Finally found a doctor who was listening to me,
Good.
put these things to and said, "You're right." And to this day, I just saw them last week. Was
Mhm.
kind of confounded because I have an atypical cases of lupus. It's like the data doesn't always match up to what is considered a truly lupus kind of thing. So, but he's just a human. He's just a doctor. He's just a guy like me. He actually is also a deadhead, as it turns out, so of
Really?
course we're going to get along good. Um, he won my heart when he told me that one of the first times that I had gone to see him that I remind him of Jerry Garcia. I've got that kind
Okay.
of energy. I was
Yeah,
like,
well,
"Oh,
smile.
thanks."
Talk
Yeah,
it's kinda normal. Yeah.
yeah,
Look at my latest Jerry story that I picked up from one of my guests. I don't know if I
Huh.
did or Skip Healy came on. He's a flute
Oh,
maker,
yeah.
and he said he was out smoking a joint on Pier 39 in San Francisco one time when he was out on tour playing music, and he plays
Mhm,
traditional Celtic music primarily.
mhm.
And as he's smoking this joint, he heard some voice come out behind him and said, "Hey, man, that smells pretty good." And he expected to see San Francisco's finest when he turned his head, but it wasn't. It was
It's
Jerry.
Jerry. Yeah,
And they shared a joint and talked banjo.
yeah.
And then at the end of the conversation,
Mhm.
Jerry said, I don't think I've ever told anybody that before. So Skip is the carrier of this banjo lore that
Uh-huh.
I think he recounted a little bit of it, but I still need to extract everything he's got.
Well, and there's the gift of story in
Right,
action. I mean,
right.
something that a story that somebody shared randomly with a stranger, and the stranger gets to carry on
Yes.
part of that legacy, you know? And in that particular case, well, it's the famous guy who played some pretty good guitar and mandolin and stuff that Jerry did, right? And banjo, of course, that was one of his,
That
you
cost
know
his girlfriend apparently.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, who wants to date
And
a banjo
or
guy?
but getting back to your doctor.
Yeah, yeah. So anyways, um, he's with UC Davis Medical, down in Sacramento or Davis, and it's worth the travel. I mean, it's
Mhm.
75, 80 miles from where I live to go see this doctor, but, he really understands it. So he's, working with me to find a solution to mitigate the pain, which is really the main thing, and to keep monitoring me. And we just got like a little thing with the kidneys, but it's not a typical kidney flare up thing. It's like, so he's got me going to the nephrologist at UC Davis you know, and just keeping an eye on me. But it does impact my life. Suddenly I don't have the energy. I have to be mindful of what I eat in a different sort of way. I have to be,
Right.
aware of how the sun affects my skin. I have to use different kinds of creams at different times of the year, and but life goes on. I can't play my guitars anymore because my hands, I get the stiffness and I can't coordinate, but I can still play my keyboards, and I can still do those kind of things that I did back in the '80s with the Fairlight and program things to happen, and
And
create music, create, in this case, the long wave home is what I'm creating, is what I'm crafting. I mean, we have a little name for our group, the Defil Harmonious Orchestrange, and that's me with whoever else I can pull in to do some sessions with me. And, and it's just all kinda noodling, just kinda because part of the thing with music to me is it's a form of communication that goes beyond words. It's the
yeah,
original heartbeat in us. So when I play music, I like to just that's what I like. That's what I'm doing. It's not to, "Oh, I need a piece of sound for this." It's just, "Let's make some music," and then I take that music that we make just jamming around and weave it into the tapestry of what long wave radio is, long wave
Lovely.
home is,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so that's kind of the idea of local artists getting different people involved in it and bringing different ideas and weaving the stories together, you know, um, to find the truth of the humanity truth of things, not did this person say that kind of truth, accuracy, you know, more like, don't we all feel this kind of thing? Remember what empathy felt like? Do you remember what, you know, um, kindness is? Like these are what some of the episodes in the future are going to be about.
Yeah.
Um, renewal, that's one of them. The ability to come back from a dark place to a light place again, surviving that, you know.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning when I was listening in on the long wave home as I sort of flicked through it quickly because I didn't have the full time before we were
Mhm,
gonna get live here.
mhm.
There was a moment in which you talked about how doctors started talking to you about, you know, making your final arrangements and doing a living will or whatever, and or what do they call those statements you write out? I forget what they're called.
Advance directive.
Advance directive, right.
Right,
And
yeah.
I was like, "Wow, that's really, puts you right up in the face of the reaper, so to speak, and you expect him to be swinging that scythe any second."
Well, yeah, just the thing I
Now
mentioned with the my
and
brain not telling it's like going to sleep every night with life and death in the same bed. You know, am I gonna wake up? Am I not gonna wake up? Is my brain gonna tell my lungs to shut off and that's it, you know, or whatever. I mean, you work through it, you contemplate, and I did do those things, and I wrote that book because if I was gonna go out, I was gonna go out writing, you
yeah,
know? Yeah, exactly, you
yeah,
know? Um, but, you know, I mean, life and death is something all things die. Flowers die, animals died, forests died, the planet's died a couple of times and come back, it's part of the cycle of things, and ultimately, our bodies come back in some sort of way. We're all carbon-based, we decompose. But what about the energy that we know? Sometimes we call it God, sometimes but there's this force maybe with you that in all of us, right? That what happens to energy? Because energy can't be destroyed, right? Can't be created, destroyed. It can only change. So what happens to that energy that is us, the dauber in us, you know, what happens to that?
yeah,
And that's really the question, and so we make up myths about it. Well, we go to hell, we go to heaven, we just go to the great void, or, "Oh, you come back and you're gonna be, your second aunt, twice over in another century," and, it's and those are all fun to think about and stuff, but we don't really know, do we?
no, it's kinda
Maybe
brain candy.
that's a good thing,
Yeah,
having that, like, veil between what happens so we can focus on where we are right now and not worry about all that because cats don't sit around and worry about when I die, how are people going to, dogs
Bruce.
don't worry about, yeah, what, no, they know, it's like,
Yeah, my cat is gone, sadly, but,
mm,
the very night my cat left, Patti Smith was playing at the anthem, and, you got to
mm,
stand there and, take in her show, and then a week later, her cat died. I felt it
mm.
was very connecting in some ways. Cairo was almost, um this is Cairo,
Oh,
was 22 years old. That's on
wow.
of, Patty's book, The Book of Days.
Oh, okay.
What today's book thing is, but, it's lovely. She does all these little photographs, that she's done over the years mixed in. What's today anyway? It's the, 22nd? Yeah, this
Yes.
and, we were just celebrating the solstice yesterday with her daughter. Her daughter puts up stuff, Jessie Paris Smith, on Substack. That was her thing for, the 22nd, and it is Ralph. Oh gosh, get my eyeglasses on. I don't know how to pronounce his name actually, Ralph Fiennes on the set of
Ralph
Coriolanus'
Fiennes.
dec
Yeah.
directorial debut. A moment before entering a confrontational scene, the inner director counsels the brooding actor. So there you go again.
Yeah.
So she's always got a little something, and it'll open my mind up to something I didn't know anything about. I don't know anything about him or Coriolanus, to tell you the truth, but you do,
Mhm.
apparently. Yeah?
Well, I know who Ralph Fiennes is. I
Okay.
mean,
Fine.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, in any case, we're coming up into the quarter hour to speak of where we are and
Mhm,
what it is. And I really have enjoyed our discussion. I was thinking about another thing about this. What are we, inside of our bodies? I was telling my guest earlier today, Odette Di Maio, or Bianchini is her, or Bianchini, I think is how you pronounce her married name. And I was saying, I feel like I'm an imp that's carried around inside of this animal from dawn to dusk and back again.
mhm,
I really, it's kind of like being incarnate was very confusing to me a bit. It's like, what is the point of this here, this life we're living, except to help each other? And I think Ram Dass said it so well. We're walking each other home,
mhm,
and you're on the long wave home,
mhm.
the podcast we've been talking about a bit. And I was talking to my other friend Julia over in the Canary Islands right now. Um, she has a site on Substack she calls Henosis. Are you familiar with the concept of Henosis? It's kind of
Mm-mm,
like sis, like knowledge.
mhm,
Kenosis is knowledge of oneness, of being one with everything.
mhm.
The old joke about what did the Buddhist monk say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one.
Make me one with everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we sort of explored that a little bit and continue to explore. And I'm forming these relationships on Substack, forming a community of people of different, very different people. And I want more diversity actually rather than less. I don't want people to be like-minded too much. I like the friction,
Mhm,
challenge my thinking on something. Don't necessarily buy into where I'm going with what we're doing here. But I think one of the things I remember talking about with you too, is the tail end of our conversation last time, was about the technology and where it's going. And we did talk a little bit about AI. We got one question about this. Can AI buy ink in gallons, from Alexei Zaitsev? I see in the chat. I have no idea what that was supposed to mean. But, you never know,
well, I
merge
it
of aroma.
yeah, of
Go ahead.
course it could buy it, but whether it could use the ink or not, I don't know, you know?
Well, for sure, Bob.
That's what my thought is on that question. I saw it come up before. I was, yeah.
I never
I
know.
also saw, one of my friends on Substack, Substack friends, it
Yes.
the D side, this young man up in Canada, Derek, who writes some amazing things. He's very funny. I really enjoy this guy's sense of humor, the D side.
Okay, let's check
I
that
saw
out.
he tuned in. I don't know if he still is. I can't tell.
I can't tell if it's tuned in or not, but
Yeah.
Wonder Seeker just joined us.
Yeah, I see that. Hello.
And if the D side is still out there, I'm going to look him up anyhow. Thanks for
Yeah.
pointing him
Yeah.
out. The
Yeah.
other people I see, Yusuf had joined, Cora Mason. I don't know how to pronounce it. Or Sierra.
Uh,
Adeline. Paul K, who's in Ohio, I believe. He pops in on my passing show from time to time. I
cool.
don't know if you ever catch my passing show,
I
but
do from time to time, you know.
I just love streaming whatever I'm seeing and
Yeah.
thinking about it. Just like, what
Yeah.
the hell is going on here? Not much, or a lot, but I won't really know what's in anybody else's head,
Mhm.
how they're perceiving the world. I don't know if
Mhm.
we talked about my fascination with G.I. Gurdjieff and his fourth way before, but
Yeah.
I am kind of interested in what had going on. I don't know if this is upright or not. Yes, it is.
Mhm,
Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson was his major work, which is designed basically to filter out people who weren't really serious about
mhm,
following the fourth way. But it was really about being awake and being aware of just how unconscious we tend to be
mhm,
and how we do have to slow down and take it into account. And he had all this music he composed,
mhm,
movements, the Gurdjieff movements, dances, basically, that would cause you to really focus on your body in space and how it was aligned so that you could get a better awareness of, you know, how automatic an awful lot of our lives are with how we
mhm,
go through in a state of unconsciousness. And he
mhm,
was say people need to can and should wake up.
mhm,
I don't know. I just know how it seems to me, and I could be wrong. That's my mantra. I didn't
mhm.
get perspective from other people, and I picked up a lot from you. I appreciate it very much. I also
Thank
want to listen to more closely the entire long way of home and want our guests to do the same. We'll put this out there on Substack, and of course, it'll go out on YouTube and get cut up into snippets of
mhm,
our conversation. We'll see how that
mhm.
evolves.
Yeah, yeah, those are always interesting, you know.
Yeah, I never know how.
Now what did the algorithm find interesting here? Well, this part and this part and this part. These will hit the buttons,
And
you
how
know?
is it gonna misinterpret me?
Right. Exactly. You know, or do I like being my narrative being arranged in such a way, you know? I mean, that's kind of what Long Wave Home is. It takes like the first episode is 90 minutes long. It takes some minutes to sit down and listen to it. That's kind of the point of what a long wave is, you know? Stop, give yourself some time to just listen to everything what that goes on in there. It's a story of resilience. It's a story of tenacity. It's a story of love. It's a story of heartbreak, grief, loss, reclamation, agency. You know, it's a whole story, and allow yourself the chance to just kind of breathe through it. You know, and in that particular, it's very heavy on the music in that one. I get into my FM DJ kind of mode,
I
you
heard
know.
that.
So yeah, so you know, it's there, but that I used it because it's familiar to many people in, I think, the audience that feels what I feel, you know.
Mm,
G Remember this song kind of feeling to it, you know, being comfortably numb and putting a context of what that song is and how it came to fruition in my life so many years later. You know,
right,
we were teenagers when that came out, and then when I was in my 40s, I was that dude. "Hello, is there anybody out th" You know, that was me, you know, and kind of putting them juxtaposed to each other, you know, um, using the Gershwin piece in the different ways that I did throughout act 2. Um, I mean, I cut it up and moved the movements around to match the moods that I was feeling or experiencing of my life at that time, you
yeah,
know?
quite triumphant when I was hearing it, and that was the section, I believe, where you were getting properly diagnosed.
No, no, that was before all that happened. Well, yeah, in the story, yeah, that is.
Yeah.
In life, it was, that was like what happened back in the '80s. I mean, it was, I did that piece in
Oh, when you created
1985.
right, when you programmed it. I was thinking you
Right.
where it fell in the narrative.
And yeah, and and for me in my life, it was like the moment I arrived, like I did this thing for United Airlines, and everybody started cheering afterwards, and they came and talked to me, and this is going to change, and they end up using they embodied that piece of music, and of course they got Gene Hackman to do the overdubs, but it became part of their marketing in the '90s and beyond. Still used in the airport at,
I didn't realize
O'Hare.
it was actually yours.
Well, the whole concept of it was, and then, but I was work for hire. They paid me, my, outrageous sum of money if in the time, like I was 23 years old, 24 years old. It was like, It's almost $100,000, and
Incredible.
it was, and
Hmm,
yeah, they did have different scores of it too. I mean, they didn't
sure.
use my actual,
Programming.
because right, because but putting the idea out there, that was me. That was,
That
you
is
know,
fantastic. Yeah, that's lovely. And
yeah,
then
and I renamed the piece. I called it "Wrapped So Deep in Blue," and talked about, the blue skies and friendly blue skies and the future. And yeah, just kind of being an artist in the middle of the corporate realm, and that happened, and they ran with it, but I never saw any more money. And they didn't call me back because it was too expensive. They could do it for cheaper now,
Oh god, yes.
but
That's one of the problems we have with our creatives is that they need to be supported, and that's, largely what I was doing before I became, needing of support myself.
mhm,
But, I'm getting a bit, and I'm gonna continue to fare forth in this vein. We've got about
mhm.
5 minutes, I see, until the hour, and I do wanna be respectful. Your time is mentioned.
Thank you.
What else would you like, listeners to take away from this? Of a blue sky.
Mhm. I think make room, stay human, and let the stories arrive.
Mhm.
Just let them happen and unfold,
Yeah,
you know?
beautiful. I remember when I was a conservation technician, I worked with a woman who had been made a conservation technician after she could no longer do the work she had been doing for the president of the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation as his housekeeper. She had had a throat, laryngectomy with
Mm,
cancer. And she talked with a little valve in her throat. And she would
mhm,
say, just let it unfold. Just, and she would use laughter therapy quite a
mhm.
bit through her recovery. And I think that's important to do as well, to laugh at the sheer miracle, as you talk about at the end of this book here, of
Right.
being alive.
Right, we're on this little tiny rock in the middle of the universe spinning around like this, going around an unstable ball of gas. It is, it's a fucking miracle that we're here at all, so don't worry about the rest, you know?
Don't let it bother you. Do you remember the old Fred and Ginger movie? I think it might have been Top Hat. And there's a scene in there where they have these little French girls doing these little dancing
Mhm,
dolls on their fingers. And their
mhm,
tune is "Don't Let It Bother You."
mhm.
And of course, it was the Great Depression at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
But that was a good message to have as you make your way from dawn to dusk and back again.
right.
Thank you again, Philip. It's a joy to have you on. I'd love to have you on again, of course, in the near future, perhaps after the next launch of the next episode. Perhaps we could talk about that and give it a
Yeah,
little
well,
little voiceover.
yeah, maybe, or
But
maybe
it
we'll just
feels
get
good to
together
be
and talk about Grateful Dead things. I
more,
loved it,
the Dead and
yeah,
all the spinoffs. I mean, I was
yeah,
putting out there today a little. You remember the old song from Hot Tuna, "Keep Your Lamps Trimmed and Burning"? I'm sure it's a
mhm,
tradition. It's
mhm,
not the original of them, and I saw Yorma recently for his 85th birthday tour, as you may have seen him as well, I don't know. Um,
mm-mm,
but, I was put out there a little clip from what do they call it, Baygrass Festival
mhm,
of, Holly Bowling
mhm,
was Kristen Residence playing with Elliot Peck and Friends. It was supposed to be, Midnight North, but Graham Lesh had something that kept him on the left coast,
mhm.
and they did a version of, "Keep Your Lamps Trimmed and Burning" that was practically apocalyptic in my hearing.
Wow.
So we
Well,
really do
that's
need to keep our lamps trimmed and burning, you know,
yeah,
keep the
yeah,
light shining, and,
right, right,
but we're at one
exactly.
I should probably let you go, and
All
thank
right.
you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm sure we'll talk again. I'll be reading you.
Thank you. I'll read you.
Okay.
I got plenty to read now. Got this one
Yeah,
too, in
yeah,
addition to the Tall Tales of a Short Childhood, My
yeah,
Biological Reality, or How Life Goes On.
right.
So, folks,
Obla-di, obla-da.
books,
Yeah,
and tune into the podcast, The
right
Long
on.
Walk Home.
Thank you.
Here.